So a big question right now, people are asking about the coronavirus. Somebody asked, they said, why shouldn't I just go to cash in my investment portfolio? It's a very common theme when you have market downturns, and we had a pretty decent sized one Monday with about a 4% decline. It almost didn't matter where in the world you were. Now, some people are asking, is it coronavirus? Is it the election? I look at it as probably more coronavirus related just because of the fact that it's so widespread. If it were just the election, it would probably just be in the United States. Warren Buffett was actually interviewed on TV, and I thought he had some good things to say regarding this. He was talking about risks, and he says, a lot of times people, one of his famous quotes is that people tend to go to cash, and the stock market is just a mechanism for transferring money from people who are scared to those who aren't scared. And that's why I always love the movie It's a Wonderful Life, is because Jimmy Stewart's character is trying to coach people about how banks work because Potter is taking advantage of everybody, number one. Number two, if you look at, and this is something that Buffett said, he says, where can I go for safety? A lot of people would look at maybe insurance companies, and he was actually mentioning how low the bond yields are right now. The 30-year bond is well under 2% yield. Lending money to the government for 2%, actually 1.8% for 30 years. That's how bad that is. Well, that's really bad and is really hard on insurance companies. It can also be hard on banks, which is another place somebody might think of putting money into a money market or something like that, because of the fact that the banks are dealing with the yield spreads, and it's really hard for them to become profitable, and it actually puts them in a more precarious situation. Now, the last thing I want to just mention here is the fact that downturns are so common. I was actually texting this to all my guys this morning. Market downturns, 5% or more declines, which is actually greater than what we just saw yesterday, happen on average about 3 times a year from 1949 through 2018. 10% declines about once a year. So we look at these downturns and we say it's fairly common. Now, what made the market go down? Well, coronavirus, which is causing people not to be able to cross borders. And we have people that are not going to meetings, they're not going to work in China, for example, and they can't go to work, they can't produce things. So it puts a delay in the production of items, which causes stocks to go down. Now, they don't know how long it's going to be delayed, number one. Number two, it's interesting because there is a company that's actually come up with a drug to treat this. It is actually going through clinical trials, the fastest any drug has ever been brought through a clinical trial. So there are things out there, and we will adapt. We will find ways around this. We will adapt, but it takes time. So market declines and upturns and downturns are fairly normal, number one. Number two, another thing to remember is that when we're dealing with cash-like investments and things like that, we have that as you get older in your portfolio and bonds because of these types of downturns. We don't sit here and think, oh my goodness, the market could go down. We just think, well, when will it go down? Because it always does. It goes up and goes down, and it is a fairly normal function of markets.